weekend. Michael and I had talked about him having the opportunity to get in front of parents before the end of the school year. We talked about this a while ago, to talk about his assessment of lower division and his vision for lower division, and what he sees and what he's looking forward to do next year. As you know, Michael is a seasoned veteran of lower division and St. John's, and was the most successful candidate from a strong field of external and internal candidates. So with that, I am very happy to hand over to Mr. Michael Salzer.
Well, thank you very much, Hugh, and it's great to be here. I want to thank all of you at home who are welcoming me into your living room, on your phones, on your iPads, and your computers. This is surely a different version of how I expected my first parent coffee to go. But I think given what's going on, the concepts of being dynamic and flexible are important nowadays. Those are kind words that Hugh just said. I did have the opportunity to speak with a group of parents back in January to kind of give an idea of who I am and where I've come from and things like that. And in case anyone hasn't, been caught up on those things, I just want to mention again, I'm an alum of St. John's. I went through the full 10-year experience at St. John's. My mother taught there for over 20 years at St. John's. I've been a teacher at St. John's for 17 years, and I'm also a St. John's parent. I have two children, a rising first grader and a rising fourth grader. And I share this with you this evening because I'm a big believer in perspective, and I feel like and I know that I have been afforded a tremendous amount of perspective on St. John's, and knowing where it's been, knowing where it is now, and knowing most importantly where it's going in the future. Having said that, I also wanted to say just briefly that over the last month and a half, I have been thinking about the entire St. John's community as a whole, a lot, deeply, and I hope that everybody is doing well and that you are as happy as you can be these days, and that you are healthy and safe. So to talk about the future of St. John's gets me really excited, and to kind of think about and share my thoughts about the vision of where I see the lower division heading. There's a lot that I'd like to unpack and share. This being the first of hopefully many parent coffees occurring in the future. I'm going to touch upon some things, with detail in some regard, and in some cases keep things a little brief in the essence of keeping some surprises for your children that are in store for the start of next year. And also, having said that, in light of the unknown of how next year will begin, I'm going to share ideas and thoughts that I have that are long-term. And we have to all understand that some of these ideas obviously will be throttled in the short term. But no matter what happens, these events that are going on, I consider to be temporary in the long-term success of the school and the division. So when starting to unpack my thoughts and vision for the future, the first thing that comes to my mind is the curriculum for the lower division. I have seen over the years that teachers within each respective grade level have sort of retreated and turned into islands in their own right. And I am ecstatic to come in and to help build and forge the bridges of connection between each grade level moving forward. I'm already looking under the hood of curriculum in the lower division and working on piecing together parts and rewiring things and ensuring that the curriculum is completely aligned from first through fourth. I want to be able to stand back and look at a student that passes through the lower division And I want to make sure that they incrementally, step by step, have gained all the necessary tools and skills for our division to pass those students along to be successful when they reach the middle division. So one of my first tasks that I've already begun to work on is aligning the curriculum and making sure that everything is streamlined, and asking the questions and looking deeply. Where are the gaps? Where might the gaps be? Where are we overlapping with content? These are things that I will work tirelessly to make sure that they completely are streamlined and aligned. In a sense, I want to, St. John's, being an alum and being part of this community professionally, students and educators, we are just completely dedicated to having students that perform with a high level of academic excellence. And in my eyes, that's not going to change, and it's only going to improve, because I want to raise the bar even higher. In a sense, I also want to create a high level of student engagement. Being someone who's seen all sides of the coin here too, there is a lot of tradition at St. John's. And in my mind, and especially in relation to curriculum, there are parts of me that still believe in that there's merit in traditional style teaching, but also understanding that I consider myself to be a young person still, and there are large progressive elements of me, and I want to make sure that the faculty in my division are combining those elements appropriately, because I do think that there's room for both as well. Data is very important to me. How are we using data in regards to our students, specifically with the individualized plans? We have access to assessments and within the lower division that are very important. And I don't think that any one student is the same per se. And so I want to look deeply into the data that we have and that we can gather about each individual student, and formalize a plan specific to them. One of the hallmarks, I think, of St. John's is, and will be even further, is the differentiated style of teaching that I want to make sure that faculty within our division are using. Again, students are different. Their learning styles are different. And so we, as teachers, as faculty, we have to make sure that we are reaching each of those students in the correct way. And so that is definitely an emphasis of working with the faculty and making sure that that is being implemented within each grade, within each class. What I also believe strongly in is connecting the curriculum across the board. And so, one of my jobs is to look deeply and see, within each grade level and within each subject, how are ways that we can cross-connect curriculum and make sure that no subject exists in a vacuum. I mean, as an educator for years at St. John's, this has been one of my missions, to make sure that something I'm teaching in one class, I can connect in another and show students that when we learn in this manner, that we're learning in a manner that relates to how the real world works. I'm a big believer in collaboration. I'm a big believer in communication. And the faculty know this, because I've already talked to them about my strong beliefs in this. And this goes back to the original point that I was making, is that I want to see the faculty within the lower division collaborate more, share ideas, work together, communicate, not only with their colleagues within each grade level, but also across the entire division. I don't want to see any grade be an island anymore. I want to connect everyone in a new and engaging way, and transfer that down to student engagement within each grade. On the heels of that, I'm excited to work with smaller groups of faculty members. Hugh and I have met and started to enact a plan to get teachers speaking about curriculum and communicating about curriculum, and to work together. And so I have identified some faculty members that will be part of a collaborative curriculum team working with me and helping to identify all the things that I just mentioned to further ensure that the curriculum experience for your children is as streamlined and as is aligned, as possible throughout our entire division. So that's number one for me. That's priority number one. I'm also a big believer in educational technology, and I do think that we're trying to teach our children, our students, to be they are 21st century learners. I believe strongly in that. Students are different nowadays than they were 10 years ago when I was teaching. So we have to meet their needs. And so there's no question that educational technology is imperative with lesson design and curriculum. And it is very important to me that teachers have these assets and resources at their fingertips within the classroom. I do also believe strongly, though, that technology needs to be integrated in an appropriate way. And I am looking forward to working with teachers in this regard as well. But most importantly, taking stock of where we are with that as a division and ensuring that I can do and will do whatever I can to make sure that teachers have the resources they need to do this. At the same time, in addition to that, I was going to pivot and switch to another topic, so I will say that as well. So, character education. Character education is something that within my own classroom, I have integrated into really every day of every year. I'm a big believer and share the same beliefs that Hugh has in building the whole student, the entire self, when they move through St. John's and progress through St. John's. So as the lower division head, I have an initiative that I'm going to institute next year involving character education and development. And I'm not going to reveal too much about it other than the basis of it is taking a month out of each school year and focusing on words like sincerity, humility, integrity, honesty, and incorporating these words into daily life within our students, within the community at St. John's at school. I have some really creative ideas to display these words throughout the school, and also I have some very creative ways to allow students to identify these acts of these words on a monthly basis and then publicly display this for everyone to see. So I'm really excited about that because it's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And in fact, for those of you who have had the chance to attend morning chapel this past year and have had the chance to listen to Father James Reho speak, a lot of the things that he talks about within his morning lessons, which I'm sure many of you miss hearing aside from catching up on his YouTube. He believes strongly in character education again as well. This is something that is near and dear to his heart. So James and I have had discussions about these plans that we have to further incorporate this initiative and to bring it to life within the lower division. School pride in St. John's is a big thing that I believe in. And there are ways that I think we can foster this and have it grow within the lower school. The schedule actually affords us every Friday the opportunity to assemble as a group. And I have some wonderful ideas to bring the lower division together, first through fourth, on certain days of the week, and to participate in activities that further this identity of St. John's and who we are, and to further the sense of pride for St. John's that students have. At the same time, I have big plans for creating cross-division games and activities. There have been steps that have been taken. The Eagle Cup is something that allows first through fourth graders to work together and collaborate. But I also think that this concept of grades working together in different ways can be taken further. And I'm very excited to enact some of these ideas and plans next year with first and second graders getting together in activities, third and fourth graders, and then a mix of all the grades collaborating and integrating together under the guise of my ideas for some fun games and competitions.
Michael, I pose a question.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. How are you feeling? I mean, something we talked about, and I thought your answer was very interesting. How are you feeling about transitioning from peer and colleague to supervisor?
That's a great question. And I think that the transition so far has been very smooth, seeing as I have had the opportunity to lead, just as recently as last Thursday, a faculty meeting to talk about the future. I can talk about it from my perspective, and then I can make a guess as to the perspective from others. But at the same time, I think that being alone to think about that initially versus the reality, I think are two different things. And I also think that I have earned a great deal of respect from my colleagues over the years as being an internal leader in my own right. And so I think that the transition that I have experienced so far has been incredibly smooth. I think that the faculty have my respect, and they also understand that my vision as a leader of the faculty is one that is based in whole improvement of the division. They support it and are behind it, and I think they're excited to begin a new stage of, in line with what I talked about just a minute ago, in that I think faculty are very excited to start collaborating more, to start communicating more, and to start sharing more in a very supportive and open environment that their talents and ideas are celebrated in every way.
Great. And we've worked together closely on building your team in terms of personnel. So would you like to share any thoughts that you have as far as who's coming in and that process and what you're most looking forward to?
Certainly. Being in this position of leadership and being at the helm of the lower division and committed to excellence in every regard, one of the things that I have really looked forward to is building a team. And I could not be more excited about the future with the team that we have built within the lower division. We have added 3 new teachers, this coming year. Carrie Fowler in the 1st grade, Tara DeVell in the 3rd grade, and Lindsay Becker, who is joining us in the 4th grade. Those 3 teachers are just incredibly talented, incredibly strong, incredibly well-rounded, and through all of my interactions with all 3 of them, I have just been impressed. The takeaway is that I just could not be more excited to add them to the team. Obviously, there is familiarity with Carrie Fowler. She has been a tremendous kindergarten teacher for years. She's a friend, and at the same time, she is someone who garners my ultimate respect for her talent, and equally, at the same time, I feel the same way about Tara Novell. I feel like she is just an amazing and will be an amazing addition to the third grade. She's a phenomenal teacher, a phenomenal person. And then finally, Lindsay Becker, who, again, I couldn't be more excited about Lindsay Becker as well, because, all three of these additions in their own right are such different individuals and will offer such different things in different grade levels. And with Lindsay, she comes in as a tremendous math teacher, and she's going to fill a position that has never existed at St. John's, which is very much in line with what I was referring to before about how there will be leaders, faculty leaders of curriculum. And Lindsay's particular talent is to be a math coach and curriculum specialist for not only just the lower division, but also from pre-K to fourth grade. And these are some of the things that Hugh, you and I are building, and I hope the community knows that. And in the sense of Lindsay is going to take a look at the math curriculum along with us, along with me, and along with Anna Ibanez at the primary division, and make sure that the math curriculum is completely step-by-step and in line from all the way from pre-K to fourth. So I couldn't be more excited about her as well.
Great. We do not, highly unusual, we do not have any questions. Some nice comments welcoming you. And so is there anything else that you'd like to say, perhaps in closing, or anything else that you'd like to share with the community this evening?
Well, I mean, just I know that there are probably more, maybe not right this second, but in general, I shouldn't make a joke, but there are more questions right now than answers in general. But I do want to say that I'm incredibly enthusiastic and optimistic about the future. I am looking forward to building the best and most successful division at this school, and committed to doing so over the long term. And, St. John's is a home to me, and I have a great deal of pride in the success of St. John's and what it means to me. And I just want to say that this division will be full of excitement and enthusiasm, and I want all of your children to go home and say, I love school and I love St. John's. Today was the best day ever. And I want them to say that every day, because I know that I've said that every day for the large part of my life. So I want to pass that on to your children and have them live in that environment and that world.
We have a question.
Hey, there's a question.
We love Mr. Salzer. How do we transition in fall, end of summer, after this period of remote learning?
That's a great question, and I know that that's on the forefront of everyone's mind. And I would say, too, that, situation is fluid in a sense that it is changing, and that no one here knows exactly what is going to happen. But there are some things that we can view as stepping stones for the future as far as the beginning of next year. Obviously, we have added the extra 2-week period of review. And earlier I spoke about the importance of identifying gaps in the curriculum. Well, I cannot tell you how important it is to sit down with faculty members at certain points before this period begins. I mean, it's going to be a busy summer no matter what, right? But I want to know where things left off this year, and I want to know exactly where we are planning to pick things up. I want to have a very clear plan of action that has adapted to how this school year finishes and closes. And that is starting to be discussed, and it will be completely ironed out by the time we start the school, so that we have a complete game plan for each grade, each class, and student. So that's part of it. So we will close this year off with distance learning. And I know that the narrative and the message ultimately comes from Hugh as well, supported by Lisa, myself, and Anna as well, about how the next year will begin. So we are looking at options, right? because no one can predict exactly what's going to happen, we can forecast, and we are forecasting to the best of our knowledge. And most importantly, we will be prepared in whatever occurs, because we will have planned for these options that we are forecasting. So one of the major options that has come to light, because there may be more than one, is that we began the year with a hybrid school. And I know that Hugh has talked about this in other, virtual coffees or live streams, rather. So I know that he's covered this, but to just recap, there would be physical students present in the classroom, and also some that would be at home with distance learning. And I can tell you that we are deep in the planning stage of preparing for a situation like this, and that we will be ready to take what we've learned to close this year and to make it even better and to improve upon it for the start of next year. And I just will add that, I feel fortunate, talking about perspective earlier, I feel very fortunate to come from being a teacher within this world of distance learning, and I've learned so much about what works and what doesn't, and being dynamic and flexible and all these things. I've learned so much over the past month, and will continue to close the school year out. And I get to take that knowledge to a leadership role for the division. So I'm very excited about that next year.
Question about move-up day, and do you think that we might be able to have a possible move-up day for rising first graders in some format?
That is a great question. I would love to do a virtual version of that. I've definitely given that some thought, and as recently as actually 2 days ago, I think that would be important. I think the handoff that would naturally occur, obviously, occupying the physical space, obviously that cannot happen, but I still think that the handoff should occur. And so with some planning for that to occur virtually, I would say yes. I would definitely say yes, that I would like to see that happen, and to keep an eye out for a virtual event of some sort involving faculty members, involving me and you.
Is there any worry that we won't be coming back to school July 28th? I don't want to think about that. I'll just offer, and then if you want to add to it, as you know, right, and even today we were on an hour-long call with colleagues about planning for the future and the different scenarios. We have to wait and see what we are allowed to do in terms of government mandates and restrictions and social distancing as it stands with this rapidly evolving situation. No way of knowing next week, next month, what restrictions will be in place. We are planning to return on July 28th. That 2-week period will be optional. And if it's not physically possible, then we'll have a plan in place that looks at a couple of different scenarios to still make sure that the children are served. So hope that becomes a moot point. But as I said the other night, hope parents feel good and assured that there is a lot of behind-the-scenes planning going on, not just, to finish this year really well, but to think about the future. Michael, anything you want to add?
No, I think that was well said, Hugh. Honestly, I just that whatever plan happens, the putting, we want to best serve your children. I mean, and that to me is what resonates the most out of what you said, for sure.
Do you have an idea yet for how you will measure curriculum alignment?
That's a great question too. It's kind of being worked out right now. I mean, not the whole, looking at the curriculum and aligning it. I think that, there are elements of the curriculum that I think can be beefed up. I think that there are elements of the curriculum that we can integrate more collaborative learning and project-based learning. I do value the input from the curriculum team that is assembled, and from talking to faculty members, and then taking that input and measuring it back with the curriculum as it stands now. So that is kind of the process that I'm going through and will continue to go through in regards to curriculum.
And the second part of that, how will you and your team hold each other accountable for any such metrics?
Well, I think that definitely, it falls on my shoulders as well as kind of the leader of the entire division and team. I think that it has to be an ongoing process. I think that looking at the curriculum that is, is adapted a bit, because we're not going to rip up the entire, blueprint and start from scratch, but we're going to improve it. So I think seeing, and this is what I would expect. I would expect to see student success in certain areas that I feel need attention more so than others. And so I think by tracking that and using data and making sure that any edits, changes, or adaptations that we make that fall in line with and mirror what we would see on the other end.
And I would add to that, as some parents know, I did a coffee on it, it seems like a long time ago now, but we worked with faculty, and Michael was part of that process to develop a entirely new growth-driven autonomy and accountability-based model of teacher performance. And one of the key modules of that is centered on curriculum development. And another key module, just to lead into a next question, is how are you planning to cater to different students depending on their needs and abilities? I'll just say that a key component of that is focusing on differentiated instruction, which is a universal expectation for teachers, not an option. Michael, do you want to add anything to that?
No, because that's the cornerstone. That in my response, that is the cornerstone of our approach, and it is something that is going to be it is required and adapted across the entire institution of St. John's.
Great. I think that may be it. I don't see any other questions. I want to make sure that I didn't miss any. We talked about Move Up Day. Talked about July 28th. Any plan for kindergarten to get a preview of Laura? We talked a little bit about that. How do we transition in fall, end of summer? We talked about that. So I think that's it in terms of questions. So I'll give you the last word, and then we will end and move on till tomorrow.
Okay. Well, thank you, Hugh. I'm just one quick bookkeeping note. I wanted to mention that I'm in the process too of taking and organizing Zoom meetings for anybody that would like to reach out to me and meet and talk one-on-one. I will continue to do that. So if anyone out in the community would like to speak to me further, or if they have any questions or concerns or anything or feedback, my door is open. And so please reach out to me to schedule one of those, because I anticipate to be sitting down with many of you and talking one-on-one, and I encourage you to reach out. And then just in conclusion, I'm an eternal optimist, and I couldn't be more excited for the future of St. John's, and I just want to thank everyone for welcoming me into your homes this evening. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael. I'm excited to work with you. Already been very pleased and encouraged by our early interactions and teamwork. So it is going to be great, and we'll get through the current temporary challenges, and best days lie ahead. So thank you for taking the time this evening, and thank all the parents for watching and everybody else. And stay safe. Good night.
Night.